This is To All the Men I've Tolerated Before with Natalie Katona, your weekly look at everyday misogyny. Today, our guest is Urmi, and holy cow, what a talented guest we have today. Urmi is a self published author, speaker, blogger, polyglot. I don't even think I know what that word means, mentor, and is doing a lot of work in empowering women through learning and self development. Her first book, Discovering Your Identity, A Rebirth from Interracial Struggle, reflects her journey as a third culture kid, which is what we'll mostly be talking about today. So, welcome to the show, Urmi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Give the listeners a little bit of background information on you since you're a first timer.
Yes, so my name is Urmi. I'm actually based in Montreal, Canada. I like to consider myself a woman who wears many hats. I work in the financial sector, but I do have a lot of passions and hobbies. So I am a self-published author, speaker, mentor, blogger, female mentor, and a big advocate of women's empowerment. I am currently the social media lead at the Women in Leadership organization, which is based in Canada, and I am the social media lead for the Victoria chapter.
My God. And I like to think that I'm busy. And then I hear actual other people work through everything that they're involved in. And I'm like, I could be doing more with my day, probably.
I am busy, and people always ask me how you do all of these things. I also do not know how I do all of these things.
It's amazing. My brain will not recognize that I'm probably busy and overwhelmed until I mess something up. And then I'm like, oh, that's right. Because my life is chaos and I've overscheduled myself.
Yeah, but it's fun and productive, and we do a lot of great things.
Exactly. So, give me some background on publishing your first book. Congratulations. That is
Thank
such a
you.
feat. I am in a writing program currently where a lot of people are writing either collections of essays or memoirs or things like that. I'm on the screenwriting track, but hearing people actually like sit down and write their real world experiences and then going through the process of self-publishing, I'm always in awe because the formatting alone would drive me bananas. So congratulations. Tell
Thank
us
you.
a little bit more about your book.
Yes, so my book is called Discovering Your Identity, A Rebirth from Interracial Struggle. I self-published it 3 years ago. So we're talking about 2022. And in this book, basically I talk about my life as a third culture kid. So basically, for those who do not know what it means, basically third culture kid is someone who spent most of their life or their childhood or teenagehood in a country different than where their parents are from. So I am basically born in Italy, raised in Italy. However, both of my parents are from Bangladesh. And so in my book, and so this is what makes me a third culture kid. And in my book, I talk about what it was for me, to be someone who had multiple backgrounds, cultural background, and how these two cultures, the Italian culture and the Bengali culture, were always like clashing with each other, and how I was trying to, navigate those challenges. So I talk about that in my book, and it's from a perspective of a South Asian woman.
Yeah. One of the assumptions that or impressions that I always take away when I'm reading or watching stories like Rami about third culture children or first generation children of immigrants is there seems to be a lot of responsibility on those children to make their parents comfortable in the new culture, but also maintaining like some sort of belonging for themselves in that culture and their family's culture. It just really seems like that is a prevalent theme in all of the stories that I've at least taken in.
Yes, and I agree with you. That's exactly what it is. Like, there is a lot of expectation and pressure from the kids to basically keep up with their parents' culture, religion, belief, tradition, and so forth. But then you, as a person, sometimes you feel like you're in a limbo because then you are also exposed to other cultures around you, especially if you're born in a country where there's a lot of different cultures, and if you're born in a country where the culture that is predominant is completely different from the one that is in your house, sometimes you go through a lot of like conflicts, and here you are trying to make your parents proud, keep up with the reputation, look for validation, but then internally we go through a lot of struggles because we feel like it's never enough, and we're not sure how to even achieve those expectations.
Yeah. And I think the way that I connect to it the most, being a not third culture kid, like my family is very white. It was my great grandparents who immigrated to America. So by the time I was born, no one in my family was learning Croatian or Polish or anything
Mhm.
from the cultures we were from. And but I think it mirrors a lot of the pressures I feel as like an eldest daughter, where it's like you become kind of like, are you also an eldest daughter? Do we share that?
I am the oldest daughter, so I get how you feel.
Yeah. It's like we're the spokesperson of our family, and we take on a lot of the reputation of our family. I've likened it to being a secret keeper or a story keeper of our family. Like our stories live through us because we've either heard them the most or we've experienced them firsthand. And there's just like a lot of pressure to be a, I could, at 36 years old, whenever my parents wild and want to give me a new responsibility based on their anxiety and or feelings, I still very much have the urge to scream, I'm a baby. I am your child. I am an 11-year-old. Like, leave me alone.
Yes. Does it still happen to you though? This whole like pressure that you have? Because I still have, I have both of my parents coming to me and every time there is an issue, and I'm thinking I'm not the one who's supposed to be solving this.
Yeah. So I am in this very fun phase of my life where I had lived away from both of my parents, like 4-ish hours away from either of my parents. My parents are divorced. And I was able to create this like whole solo life. This like I was setting boundaries, my schedule was my own. I could ignore phone calls or text messages if I could come up with a reason I was too busy or whatever. And I could kind of disappear. And for those 10 years, I would say that my younger sister, there it's only the two of us and we're 17 months apart. She took on a lot of probably that pressure of like hearing their feelings and their thoughts and their anxieties all of the time. But I've recently moved back. My sister now has two children. Due to the fun economy that is currently happening in America, it just got harder and harder and harder to be a woman who lived far away from her family, especially post pandemic and post my layoff. So I'm back. And it's really been a huge culture shift for me because I'm so used to not considering other people. And now it's like I only get um attention from one of my parents that I share a roof with if in fact they need something from me. Like it's never a, hey, what do you got coming up for the summer? Because it's hot girl summer. It's, hey, at 12 o'clock, this is happening and I need you to do this. And it's a period. It's never a question. It's never a, are you able? It's never a please and thank you scenario. A couple of weeks ago, I was cleaning up dog diarrhea from a dog that did not belong to me because the dog got sad that their parents were gone and tried to poison herself. And I did not get a, hey, Natalie, thanks for shampooing the carpet every day. Nothing. It's just expected.
Oh,
And I'm so not used to
yes.
that.
So we share a lot of things because we are also two sisters. It's me and my younger sister. We are 5 years apart. And well, my parents do not live with me. They live in a completely different country. And even though they are far away, they still manage to get into my business. And in South Asian culture, no one ever teaches you about boundaries and
Yeah.
saying no and putting yourself first. And so the moment I started to learn about boundaries and protecting yourself, protecting your mental health, protecting your energy, I could see, the reactions. Like they didn't like it. And I could see how some of it also fell on my sister too, because of course she's with them. So of course, if one of us is not here, they're gonna go to the other one. And I could see how a lot of this stuff like just went to her. And I think she's still trying to understand a little bit about the whole concept of boundaries and protection and things like that. But it always falls back on someone, and it's almost like it's expected. Like this whole thing that my time is your time, you know, my things are your things. There's no such thing as separation. And I feel like the moment you talk you talk about these things or you do something that is like against their beliefs, this is where the whole chaos happens, and they start saying, oh, what happened to you, you changed, you were never like that. But it's not even any of it, like it's just that you as a person, you grow to be independent, you grow to understand different things. And I think boundaries is it's important. Like I learned how to put boundaries with family members.
Yeah. And I think also one of the things that is currently most jarring in my current life situation is for the last half of that 12 years that I lived away from my family, I had also, honestly, not even the last half, that's giving me a lot of credit. Probably since we went under for the quarantine, for COVID-19 and all of that. I started to decenter men and I really started just to not spend time with men. And I realized like my queerness and things like that. And I was hanging out a lot with the queer community and mostly other women and women presenting people and friends. And so now spending time face to face with men and misogyny and the expectations that men naturally impose on the women in their life is such a shock to my system that like a couple of weeks ago I was like having panic symptoms. I was like, "Oh, that's right. I created myself a bubble, but women are not safe in our communities. Like we're not emotionally safe, we're not mentally safe, we're very rarely physically safe, and it's all at the whim of the nearest volatile man." So that's adorable and it's so fun to put up with.
Yes, because you're talking about things that I also talk about when it comes to misogyny and how women are not safe and how we're always you know not disrespect. I want to say we are segregated. There you go. Like we're so segregated, and there's always so much expectation from just being a woman. From just being a woman, there's so much expectation. Whereas if you're a man, there's no such thing ever. And actually, I was watching something yesterday. So there's this documentary on Netflix which is basically, it's called Miss Italia, which basically it's the Italian version of Miss Universe. And I was watching it, and I was so irritated by it because, first of all, like the woman, so basically you have bunch of young girls between 18 to 24, I think, who are going to give their candidacy to participate in this program. But what irritated me the most was that the people who were selecting them were just a bunch of men, just men, strictly men, and they were all asked to be in the bikini. And this is what irritated me the most. I feel like you know, it's always about the man. Why, like in my mind, I'm thinking, why are we not doing the same thing where we have men walking in their boxers and there are women choosing, selecting the man? Like it was the other way around. And one of the guy even made a comment saying, oh, you should remove the bruises that you have in your butt. And her butt was completely like out. So
No.
for me, as I was watching this, I was like, what's there to celebrate about this show?
Mm-hmm.
It,
Yeah.
it was irritating.
I feel the exact same way whenever I watch a dating reality TV show, especially like Married at First Sight. You start to, when they group the men together and the men are given, because men don't just ask one another questions. So the producers give them a list of questions to ask one another, like they're all friends. The way that men talk about women that they supposedly care about when those women are not in the room was so eye opening. I was like, I don't think I can go back.
Yes, I think yeah, I feel like I can have a whole conversation about this. You're so right about it. I think when men are put in a situation and they are having a conversation about women, it's like no one cares about our feelings. We're almost objectified. You know, it's just it's insane. It's insane that it's like that. Um, but the society thinks it's okay to be like that, whereas I'm like, no, that's not okay. That's really not okay. You know, even the show that I was watching yesterday, one of their organizers was like, oh, you guys, this was a man of 50 years old. He was like, oh, you guys can call me like you guys can call me your dad. And I was like, that sounds pretty wrong in my mind.
Yeah, no, ew. I saw just a blip of an interview today on the Jennifer Hudson show, and she had Mikey Madison on, who recently just won an Oscar for Nora, which was a film that I did not enjoy. But I love Mikey. I believe that she is a very talented young actress. And they were talking about auditioning because she's been a child actress for most of her career. And she's like, well, I've gone on hundreds of auditions. And Jennifer asked her, like, what was the weirdest one? And she goes, and one time I went through the whole scene and the guy leading the audition was like, that was really great. Now, can you do it like you're a little baby? Just like you're just like, oh, the littlest of babies. And she went, what do you mean? Like this woman is infantilized, like she's emotionally immature. Like, what do you mean? He goes, no, I just want you to like talk like you're a little baby. And immediately, like my 36-year-old brain is like red flag, abuse of power, just some guy who needs a fantasy today and to get off on his lunch break. But she's young. She is still very young. And I'm like, who is protecting these women during auditions? Like, who is teaching these women you get to say no to requests like that? You get to ask them, how is this pertinent to the role? How are we changing culture so women at work, when confronted with a weird question, have tools in their back pocket to be like, actually, no. No, I'm not talking like a baby for you.
So what you just said just is making me think about what's happening right now with the whole case with PDD. And prior to that, I also followed the case with R. Kelly and the whole case with the what's his name, Harvey Weinstein, with the whole Me Too movement. And right now, I'm following as much as I can the whole case about PDD, and I'm like, how was this even possible? Like the things that they're saying about how the things that he did to Cassie, and also there is someone else that they're talking about. There is this girl that they're talking about who is basically his employee. Her name is Mia. I don't think that's her real name. And they talked about this, how he would rape her, and the other things that they used to do, in those freakouts or however they call them. I'm just like, how was this even possible? And I also think that a lot of the times, a lot of these people really have hard time talking about it because no one believes them. That was the whole thing also with the Me Too movement. No one believes them because they think they made it up. And there was also documentary. Again, I just watched a bunch of documentary on Netflix called She Said, where they talk about the whole issue with the Harvey Weinstein and how, a lot of these women, they were going through these assaults and, these things that, happened during auditions, but they were really afraid of speaking about it because they were just so worried about their career and their reputation and what their parents would think about it. And it's just like, why does it take so long for this to come out?
Yeah. And I think to connect it back to the eldest daughter thing or the third culture is that the onus is always on us. Like I
Yeah.
always knew in the back of my brain that my parents would be sad if something happened to me. Like, that's devastating. No one wants their child to be assaulted or hurt or anything. But I also knew that the second question they would ask me after, was I okay, would be some iteration of, now what did you do to get yourself into an unsafe situation? Were you walking by yourself? What were you wearing? Were you at least with friends? Were you drinking? And it's that whole prevalent culture of, you're supposed to be smarter than this, and how prevalent rape culture is in our families and our television and our, like, it's always like, you're in charge. You're in charge of your safety and you failed at keeping yourself safe.
Yes, so I do want to add something about it because I grew up in a culture, like I'm talking about this South Asian culture where women are often seen like a financial burden, and the biggest worry is like, okay, we have a daughter in our family, who's gonna take care of her, who's gonna get married to her. That's the biggest worry ever. That's the biggest worry. And then if you do something such as, let's say, you start dating people, you hang out with guys, that's seen as a big problem. If something happens and it's your fault, if you are dressed in a certain way, then it's your fault. If you speak to, let's say, a guy or something, then it's your fault. If people start talking and perceive that you're in a relationship, like it always goes back that it's always our fault. But then if you are also the only daughters at home, there is an expectation that you do everything at the same time. So it's like everyone wants everything from you, but then it's also your fault.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's a, and, I grew up Roman Catholic and Christian and whatnot. And we have, Eve, the woman who let us all down and introduced sin and pain and whatnot into Adam's life in paradise. And then we have the Virgin Mary, who did everything right because she was impregnated by an angel and did a virgin birth and just stayed a virgin. And then you have Mary Magdalene, the whore, who was Jesus's really good friend, but we hate her because she was a prostitute trying to make sure that, she could eat. And you don't think about it when they're just like Bible stories that you're listening to at a Sunday mass, or when you're sitting in a culture and you've watched every woman go through this, like, well, women are a burden, women are a financial burden, who's going to take care of the daughters? My cousin got an arranged marriage, it seemed to work out for her, things like that. Again, when you finally separate yourself from it and you get that like wide picture, you're like, oh, they took away my agency in the name of religion and culture and um tradition and their own fears and anxieties about a changing world. And I don't think we talk enough about how unfair that is to women who are currently trying to have careers or run households or get married or, my God, try to date in this awful, awful dating climate that we find ourselves in. Like, we just don't talk about all of that unspoken, all those rules we were given before we were just pushed out into the world and also told, and now make it work. Be a breadwinner, take care of yourself, get your own insurance, do everything right. Because we're also living in a very unforgiving capitalistic world on top of all of that.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you on this topic. Like, there's not one thing that I was like, no, it's not true. It's all true. Anything that you just mentioned, and this is the problem. Like, even in the South Asian culture, but I think this is like a problem in every culture. Like, it's because we use religion, we use traditions, you use cultures to make a point, but it's not written anywhere. Like, I remember when I was growing up, like I was always told, do not go out at a certain time. Women are not allowed to go out. Women are not supposed to be dressed a certain way. Uh, the women are not supposed to go to the movies, to clubbing and things like that, because they would tell me it's the religion says so. They used to tell me that. And I was thinking, but where is this written really? Sometimes I would question it. I was like, is this really written somewhere? Or some other times they would say, our culture is telling you this way, this is not good, we don't do these things. And I remember always questioning it. And now that I'm much older, I think about it, I'm like, okay, here you are telling me all of these things, but then you want me to have everything figured out and you want me to do everything in the best possible way. And it goes back to this whole thing about it's never going to be enough. No matter what you do, it's never, never enough.
Yeah, because it's always like good girls get married. And it's like, okay, that a lot of the times, whether or not I'm a married woman is out of my hand. Like, I have to go on a million bad first dates and then find someone who's going to be interested in me enough in a world that objectifies women at the base level. And then men date selfishly. I'll just say it. The moment I make a mistake or I'm not hot or whatever, I am no longer marriage material. I'm too mouthy to be marriage material, honestly, in a heteronormative society. So it's like, well, good girls get married. And I've just been like having all of these spirals about how I'm supposed to be upholding all of these unspoken rules, and yet none of it is really up to me. Men control our economy. So when I find myself in lackadaisical employment or not great employment, or today I read that in Indiana is the state of corn. We have literally nothing here. But today they did a money study and put it on my phone. And to live comfortably as a single person in Indiana, you have to make $86,000 a year. And I was like, I have yet to see one job that pays $60,000 a year in this fucking state. And so it's one of those things where it's like, I there's so much that's out of my control in everyday existence, relationships, money, jobs, things like my own safety, that for you to just tell me that it's all on me to make sure that I am a good daughter and a good girl and a wife and a mother and things like that. I never got to the point where juggling it all actually mattered and it all worked out.
Yeah, actually, I do want to say something about it, especially because you touched upon the topic of marriage. Um, so here's the thing. In the South Asian society, your biggest accomplishment and probably the only accomplishment in life is to get married. And basically, they don't want you to date this whole like until you get married, but then they somehow want you to have someone to get married. So they will desperately look for someone and they want you to say yes to the first guy that passes, and they expect you to make this marriage work with the stranger that you barely met. So that's one thing. Second, if the marriage doesn't work out, then it's your fault, meaning the fault of the wife. Um, if you cannot have kids or if you don't want to have kids, it's the fault of the wife. And it just keeps being on the wife. The wife and the daughter, if like I've seen it, I've actually seen it and witnessed it myself. And it just sucks because there are two people who should be making this work, but then only one person gets the fault for it all the time. It never changed. And one thing that I learned also is that as soon as you get married, basically the whole thing is that when you are married, your only job is to sexually satisfy your husband. This is what I heard, that my job is only that. What about the other way around?
Yeah, never. What? Female pleasure? It's a myth. Um, well, and also part of the reason why um, it's ridiculous to tell us that one of our huge responsibilities is to be sexually satisfying men is to be good at anything you have to practice. And you're telling us that we can't do that before we're married. So, how am I practicing? Am I just watching how to videos? Like, what's going on?
Yes.
And one time I went to a Catholic college, and part of our curriculum were these core humanity philosophy classes. And for some reason, my professor got us into a debate about trans people. And this is like, I graduated college in like 2011. So to even be talking about trans people in 2010, 2008, that feels wild that someone would get even that worked up about it, because it was something that none of us had working knowledge on. But I had working knowledge about the trans existence through a fictional show called Nip Tuck. So I was like, well, I view trans people as people, so I'm going to fight people. And uh, a man, a young man in my class during this discussion, he said that trans women could not in any way be part of the Christian God's design because they could not bear children naturally. Now, mind you, I could have taken this debate a million ways. And I threw out talking about women with endometriosis or fertility issues or barren or anything. And instead, I looked him dead in the eye and said, well, if that's what makes me perfect in God's design, whether or not I can bear children, he might as well have made me cattle. And then my professor went, okay, we're calling class there. And he just ended it. Um, because
Oh,
because there's no coming back from that. That I was like, you just talked about women, let alone trans women, as if they were horses or cows or dogs and were only good for breeding. And I refuse to allow that to be ignored. And it's it's that whole dichotomy of like we're supposed to be a lady in the street but a freak in the bed. And um I what song is that? When a lady in the street but a freak in the bed. Oh, I think it's To the Window to the Wall. Um but yeah, it's Get Low. Now the chorus is playing in my head. But how many cultures will tell you first you become a wife and then you become a mother and then you're whole and and that's it. You should be happy.
yes. Um, there's so many things that you said right there. So first of all, actually, I want to ask: did you ever like meet this guy again or not? Like after 2011?
I went to a very small college, so I'm sure we had other classes together. I When I picture him, he is your like basic white man, like dark
That's the
hair,
problem. Yeah.
white. They all look the same. His name was probably John or James or Jake or Chad or Brad or something. I cannot. I tell this story so often in the fact that I Kiki Palmer brain it every time where I'm like, I'm sorry to this man. I do not even remember his name. Like,
It's not important.
it's not important. So no,
No.
I never had another conversation with this guy because he told me all he needed to tell me about how he viewed women and other people in that statement alone. And I was smart enough to be like, oh, not a friend for me. Okay.
Because, you're talking about this, and it's making me think about a show that I watched, which is an Italian show. It's a sort of like The Bachelorette. I don't know if you're familiar with The Bachelorette, but you have these different people looking for love, and this was the Italian version of it. And it is very conservative. Okay, it's a very conservative culture, and for the first time they had a trans woman, and you look at her, and she's beautiful, like so beautiful. And like I listened to her story, and then she had like a bunch of guys coming for her. But what happened is, as soon as they found out that she was a trans woman, they all decided that, okay, we don't want to get to know her, we don't want to date her. And she went to this show for this reason, that she has really hard time when it comes to dating. Because as soon as people know that, she used to be a man and now she's a woman, people are I don't know, petrified by it, but she went through a complete full like change. She went through a complete transformation, and you really feel for her. And I watched some of her stories even nowadays, and she talks about her dating life, but she's like, you look at her, you're like, you're so pretty though. Like, how is it possible?
It's
It's
just the prejudice that runs so deep, even within the queer community, about our trans brothers and sisters, where it's like, I mean, we're seeing it in America right now with all of this bathroom
oh yeah,
legislation and gender affirming care not being covered by healthcare unless you're a straight cis person and you're getting Viagra or hair plugs or, breast implants or anything like that. Then your gender affirming care is valid because you did it the right way. But if you are a trans person who is literally just trying to live in your truth and in a body that reflects how your soul and your mind feel, I guess forget you. That's how America has chosen to vote and feel. Um, it's amazing how deep that prejudice runs when it comes to our trans brothers and sisters. And I feel so much for them. I can't imagine the mind loops that you have to go through as a person in the age of online dating, where it's like people on Love Island and Love is Blind are always like, when do I reveal that I'm a single mom before he dumps me
right.
or whatever? And I feel like that scenario in a very small way is like, would have to be what trans dating is like. Like, when do I reveal this? Will I feel safe when I reveal this? Is it really anyone's business with about whether or not I'm revealing this or whatever? And I really feel that misogyny in our society has just stripped away our ability to love one another because there's such a perfection expectation to it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you, and I think it's because we're so used to it, to this idea, right? That it's only men and women, and it's hard to change people's mentality. But I also feel like a lot of things you can learn about them and educate yourself if you have someone close to you who's going through that. And that's how I feel like you start to think differently, and you start to think about people as people, not as X, Y, and Z, and you being this and you being that. It's. I think it's very hard for a lot of people to change that. It's just, it's a little bit like love. There are so many names, but I feel like at the end of the day, it should be like, I love you for the person that you are, not because of this, and that.
Well, and I think the way that misogyny weaponizes us or makes us fearful of people who are othered. And that means like people of different races too. Like this plays into white people's racism, like inherent racism and things like that is we refuse to allow representation in our books and our media and our news coverage and things like that. And so then because our bodies have like all of these chemicals and all of these fight or flight things that happen and it's a natural occurrence. So then we're confronted with something that we've never experienced before and our body goes, we're afraid. And if we were just educated, like education is the best tool against fear. So if we were just reading books and seeing trans people on TV. Hell, we're still hard pressed to get people of color on TV and things like that. But that's purposeful. Like, I've started to tell people, I'm like, hey, it's not like just like hot and cool to be white and straight. They're only putting hot and white straight people on The Bachelorette because they want you to fear other people. Like it's all the game.
Yeah. You know what? It's so interesting because you're talking about diversity and representation. I do have to say the truth. I do see some slight changes in some things that I watch. Like, I'm talking more about, let's say, like Bollywood. Like there's so much content on Netflix, and like now you do see movies where you have where they well, you don't have trans people, but you have character play a trans person. Like before that would not be accepted. Even on Squid Game, I don't know if you watched Squid Game. This I think season 2 or season 3. There is a character who's a trans, and I mean he's not trans in real life, but he's playing that, and that's because I think people were really afraid of choosing someone who was actually trans. And so he's a man who's playing the trans character, and it was very interesting to see that. It's very interesting.
I will have to admit to everyone that I continuously try to watch Squid Game. And the problem is in season 1, they don't dedicate the whole show to just the Squid Game part. So, like in episode 2 or 3 of season 1, all of a sudden we're all kicked out of the games, and I can't get past that point. I'm like, wait, hold on. I was so bought into the games. and then all of a sudden we're back and we're just like living life. And I was like, this isn't what the show is about. Oh, I wanted to talk because we're both older sisters. One of the things that I've noticed living in a culture that perpetuates patriarchy and centering men and misogyny is it took my and I don't know if I'm brave enough to like have this conversation with my sister yet because it's still so new that I feel like we're such a strong team. But I feel like for my entire life, I was just craving for my sister and I to be like a duo that you couldn't push one of us down because the other one had each other's back and we were a menace to every man in our life or any parent that was going to put a feeling on us that was not ours. But it just never happened when we were teenagers or in our 20s because I think another thing that misogyny does is it makes sure that women never actually feel like they're on the same team.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Does your sister listen to this podcast or no?
No, my sister does not listen to this podcast. Her stance is, why would I listen to the show? I get to listen to you talk every day.
Okay. I think she's like my sister. Good. Yeah. I actually feel the same way too, meaning that I always wished we were a team. And sometimes I felt like we were a team, but some other times I felt like we were not, because I always felt like she was very much influenced by the external voices
Mhm.
because she lives with my parents. And so I think sometimes she gets so much influenced by what it's being said at home and brainwashed, I would say, even though they're not brainwashing her, but they are indirectly brainwashing her, that I feel sometimes she really struggles to be completely on my side. And I know deep down she knows I'm right. I know she knows that, but she's very uncertain, and I don't think she wants to disappoint anyone, and she doesn't want to upset anyone. And so sometimes I feel like I'm doing this on my own. This is how I feel.
I I have talked a lot on this show about how lonely it is to be women like us, women who are outspoken, women who desperately want change and are also going to take that second step and demand it and do things to help other women achieve it. And it's lonely because we're so demonized in our cultures
Yeah.
and our
Yes.
societies.
That's the word, demonized.
Yeah.
Yes.
When before I was a woman who was decentering men and I was just trying to survive patriarchy, I remember I would be at work and there would be a woman who would demand better. And the way that my brain would immediately go, why can't she just shut up? Can we just get through the day? Can we just get our work done? Can we and again, you think that that's what's going to make things easier for you. And it's why trad wives are on the rise again, or why our mothers and our aunts don't always stick up to their husbands, even though they're raging inside, because you think if I comply and if I toe the line and if I just keep my head down, I'm going to get to tomorrow. And then I'm going to get to the next day. And then one day he'll let me be happy. and it and it's so hard convincing women, no, he's never going to let you be happy. That's a direct threat against him. And it happens in our bosses, in our homes, and all of it.
Yeah, and it's also the fact that it's what we were always taught to do. It's easy if you do speak out about it or speak up about it. It's uncomfortable. You're not sure about the consequences. You're suddenly seen as a rebel. And I have seen also in the South Asian community that, women's job is really to serve 24 hours their husbands. And often it feels like slavery to me. When I see it, it does feel like slavery.
I have also made that distinction with I call it like indentured servitude. When I'm like like when my brain immediately looks at a marriage that is not anything near the marriage that I would want, and I go, he just loves you because you do laundry. Like if you were unable to do laundry for 2 days, your value to him as a human, as a person that he's sharing a life with, as someone who had his children and raised his children, zero. It's wiped. You provide a service to him. He believes that even though a majority of women work now, because that's also really fun about our current society, is we don't even get to be quote unquote what they used to try to convince us taking care of housewives. We have to work, but we have to work and continue to take on this all of these in service to our home and our fathers and our uncles and things like that. It's exhausting. And I look at women and I'm like, he loves you because you can cook pancakes and that's it. He can't tell me your favorite color, what things you did in high school for fun. He won't take you to the movies that you like to see because they're for girls and therefore they're icky. All of it.
Yes, I, I definitely, I agree with you. I definitely agree with everything you said. And what annoys me the most about it is that the moment you don't do one thing at home, then you're criticized, like,
Oh,
oh, you didn't cook today, you didn't bring the freaking garbage out or things like that. If you're asked to help, then it's an issue. Like, it's like, again, the expectation is that we do everything, we take on all the jobs, all the roles, all the tasks, and we need to have it all figured out
yeah.
somehow.
And and all and I say this all the time. Like I'm like, we're not even guaranteed orgasms out of it, let alone like the pizza topping that we like. Like it's like I don't know if you've ever seen the movie like Runaway Bride, where she went her entire life not knowing the way that she liked her eggs because she just cooked eggs the way her current partner liked his eggs. And then finally someone went, well, how do you like your eggs? And she'd go, I have no idea.
I I did not watch that movie.
It's probably streaming somewhere if you're interested in American rom-coms. But um and also like Runaway Bride released when I was a teenager, if not younger. It's not even like a revolutionary movie. It is a Julia Roberts basic rom-com. But I think about that all the time where I'm like, women will allow themselves to not have the type of pizza that they want because it's easier than picking the fight.
So I have a follow-up question about that. Was this movie made to bring awareness about what you have said, or it was just, a comedy movie?
It was just a comedy movie. And I would say I haven't watched Runaway Bride in a while, and maybe I should, because part of the podcast that we do is that we do like to pick a movie and talk about like, what did they get right? What did they get wrong? What wrong things did they perpetuate and make and put into young girls' brains? I will say that it's a rom-com, so she ends up with a new man by the end of it, but it was revolutionary in the way that it did actually present her putting herself second as the problem. They're like, you don't know yourself. And if you knew yourself, you would stop running away on your wedding day because your body wouldn't be in panic anymore because you would have picked a partner that knew you, but you don't know you yet. So it's fickle. I'm gonna have to rewatch that movie.
So talking about movies, one thing I started to do is rewatch some old Bollywood movies. And when you watch them now that you are much older, they hit you differently. And some of them they have different kind of topics, and you're like, how was this right back in the days? You, you start thinking about that. You're like, this if it gets released now, I'm sorry, but it will not do well.
No, no. Okay. Because we're running up to our end time. I'm going to move us to our ending ceremony. And I can already tell that you have to come back. We're friends now. I didn't know if you knew that this was the consequence of being on the podcast, that we
No.
have to be friends. Uh, I will, if we become social media friends, I will DM you things that make me think about you throughout the day,
Thank
or
you.
you're welcome. But we always close out the show with a lesson about our experience living under misogyny. So if you had to pass on to the next generation or the next woman you met or the women listening to the podcast what they should learn from your experience as a third culture kid and someone who had to live in misogyny, what would be the lesson that you would want to pass on?
I would, I would probably say, based on the conversation that we had, I'm trying to formulate the sentence in a proper way, but I would say definitely be the man that your parents always wanted.
Oh, oh, that's so deep. And also kind of like that's like a dark statement on our society. It's like, hey, be the son. I dare you. I dare you to take on what the expectations that they would have handed their son if you had been a son. Oh,
Yes.
that's chilling. We also like to hand out some good energy back into our collective universe. So, what's something positive that you would like to manifest for society, for other third culture kids? It could be anything, just a positive thing that helps us combat misogyny and the things that we are currently enduring.
I would say, which was also very recurring in our conversation, is definitely education. I think reading books, talking to people, watching good movies, and also, like listening to the right podcast, I think will really help you to open up your mind and think differently about different things. I think we're very, very narrow minded in some certain ways. So I think
Yeah.
education is key.
Yeah. And I think we need to remember that they want us to be uneducated as much as
Yes.
they pretend that education is so important and you have to go to college and you have to get good grades and all of it. They very much undereducate us on purpose. Like
Yes.
you have to go seek out um the knowledge behind racism and misogyny and what happened in the past and what's currently happening now. Like it's on us to educate ourselves fully.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Well, Urmi, this was wonderful. One of the best hours of my week. And I can't wait until you're back because I feel like there's still so much. We could do an entire part 2 to this episode and just, I could keep the same outline and we could just talk for another hour. But make sure that the tolerators know where they can follow you and keep in touch with you and buy your book.
Yes, so they can basically connect with me on LinkedIn. It's called Urmi Hossain. I also have an Instagram account. It's called Urmamio. I have a YouTube channel which is called Urmi Hossain, and my book is available on Amazon. It's called Discovering Your Identity: A Rebirth from Interracial Struggle.
And don't worry, everything is linked in the show notes because I want to make it so easy for you all to be friends with my new friends. Thank you so much again for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And then tolerators, you know where to find us. It's on Instagram at Men I've Tolerated Pod. Um, TikTok and my personal Instagram at NatalieK124. Uh, all of this is also linked in the show notes in case you want to email us your stories of everyday misogyny or pitch yourself as a guest on the podcast. And we are also on Patreon at To All the Men I've Tolerated Before. And remember, tolerators, you don't have to smile through anything you're tolerating, including all of these traditions that don't really fit in our modern capitalistic society. And yet, all your mom and all your aunts are still asking you why you're not performing them. Smiles are for joy.